where you end up researching what somebody else did and asking the question, well, can I take their methods and make that data here? And, and so this is what I found as well, like, this is literally why, like, the LCMS paper is because that didn't exist when I was doing what you're doing. And I was like literally doing exactly that. And I'm like, I wonder when the last fire was, or when the last thing was, or kind of like that kind of thing. And I'm like, this doesn't exist anywhere. Like it did not happen. And so I was like literally in the same place that you were, 20 years ago, going, okay, great. Now I've got to make this data set.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh wait, how do I do that? And then, how do I like deal with all of these other sort of things that I've encountered trying to find the data, right? And so that literally led to 20 years of like just making that data set that you were sort of talking about. Okay. And so like that's the like literally the big meander that can happen from where you're at right now. Okay. But the nice thing is you don't have to take that side route. You can basically just say, hey everyone, this is a problem. Community solve it. I'm going to like go this direction and like maybe come back when people have solved it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know many people who are like, oh, that's too big of a problem, I'm walking away. And now they're coming back, they're like, oh wow, check out all this cool stuff that we can do and all this information we have. I'm like, yes, now we can actually get back to what we were talking about 20 years ago. Right. Yeah. So Isabella, that's like, I feel exactly kind of that, like, there's a little bit there for me. There was frustration, right? And I was reminded that my job is to just surface these data gaps, and sort of, just by being explicit about that is actually the big finding, because you can't do that big idea until this gap is filled.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
Thank you.
And hopefully it like reassures you a little bit too, of like,
so
that is science.
My hypothesis would be centered around the data gaps in my community.
It could be.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what sort of like gets revealed, right?
Right.
So here's where you start getting very specific about, well, what kind of data gaps are we talking about? And so so there's a lot of ways that we can think about that gap. And I'd give you 3, and you can write these down. Because one is the geography, is like, does it exist in that place? Right? Just like, is it even there?
Yes.
Is it on the map? Like, it's amazing how that is so fundamental to what you can then do. Right?
Yes.
I'll just say that. Then number 2 is like, well, does it exist in the time that I'm actually looking for? And this is one of the big gaps that occurs. Right, and so like I'll bring up the example. Like we've got this nice 2020 or this nice map of land cover. It covers geography everywhere. So that's not the problem. Like we've got it mapped everywhere. But the problem is that it's tied to 2020 or 2021. So if you're not wanting to know about that particular time slice, it's not really useful, right? And so that's kind of like that next thing of like, okay, time-wise, well, can it work for our question or our problem? And so if we can sort of accommodate it in some way, we can go, okay, we'll bring that in, we'll make some accommodations and just kind of go, okay, we'll just stick to the year 2020 and just stick there and sort of recognize our data gap is outside of that. It would be nice if we could do exactly what we're doing here outside of that window, but that's basically like, okay, our limitation. So you could basically use that data gap to also constrain what people expect to come out the other end, right? And so in this case, you should expect some discrepancies between what you see in the real world, who's living there, and what was described in this 2020 data set. It's been 5 years or 6 years. So if you just acknowledge that gap or kind of that offset right off the beginning, it gets you off the hook of needing to sort of explain every reason why things don't match up. It's like, yeah, okay, time. We all know time changes things, right? And the big question right there that you're sort of getting at is, well, is there maybe another data set that can help me understand maybe, outside of that time, yeah, it may not be as detailed, may not have the same geography, right? But if we're looking at the right place, wow, all of a sudden we have this time series information that, like, Isaac, or, some of our international partners here, they don't have access to in the same way, right? And so that to me is kind of where all of a sudden the geography, again, kind of helps change the data that you get to work with. Okay. And this is where sometimes you can look at things and go, oh my gosh, wow, they're doing amazing things. It's like, yeah, if you're in Yellowstone or Yosemite or like, a place like that, but you go to the middle of Nevada and you're not going to have the same level of detail. Yeah. And to me, population is one of these things where it's very much sort of like you can get really good detailed information where the money is or where the resources are, that kind of thing. So Isabella, like all of that is actually like, hidden in a lot of these research articles. Mm-hmm. They just run to the end and say, well, I used this and voila, I did that. But they don't talk about this step, what you're going through, mm-hmm. and kind of this decision making. And so to me, if you spend time in this kind of initial phase describing, as I've described it, the shape of the data, just kind of like, here's what it is, here's what it looks like, here's the constraints, that will really lead into, now what do I do? What can I do with this information? And that makes it a little bit more, all the reviewers will ask you to do that anyway.
Yeah.
So... I found that out. Somebody who like spent all his time doing time series stuff, mm-hmm. actually in LCMS. He was one of the algorithms creators that tried to make these maps, and he was just commenting recently about how when they went to publish, all the reviewers asked like, "Well, how does this compare to the other things out there?" He's like, oh, man. And so he had to go all the way right back here, Isabella, and sort of like do that research of like, well, what do other people say in the same place? Yeah. And I was just like, oh, I've been working with you for 20 years, and you are like one of the people that likes to run to the end, think that they have done something brand new, and they forget about everybody else.
Yeah, it's been done multiple times.
Yeah, and that to me is kind of this, we separate or really focus on literature review, right? Go read an article. Mm-hmm. Now, Isabella, I think one of the things that I want to get out of this at the end of this is not just an article, but all the data that kind of goes along with it. Because it's really data review as much as literature review at this point. Because you should not be starting by creating your own data sets.
Yeah.
It just should not be happening right now. You really need to be finding the data gaps so that you can say why you're doing what you're doing, or I'm going to improve this because it doesn't work in this area. And so that's really the background piece that there's all kinds of ways of defining that. But that to me is really a huge service because like you realize it feels like it should be out there. Yeah. And then it's not. Yeah. Or in the way that you expect it to. So okay, so Isabella, that's kind of data policy, data life cycle, things that I've learned over the years here now, kind of like wanting to, like getting told like, oh, it's so easy.
Thank you, that was very insightful. I wanted to get your opinion on, like, I know I mentioned that I wasn't able to find a lot of data, but I was also thinking of cross-referencing from other cities and focusing, like my idea is focusing on how the city I live in, Morgan Hill, is urbanizing rapidly over the years, and because of in doing so, we aren't expanding on our roads. So what I was thinking of doing was comparing the urbanization and the population growth to an increase in the effect of the urban heat island effect. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it, Isabella. And I've been wanting to do this one for a while. And so you walked in at exactly the perfect time. So Morgan Hill, California, right?
Yes.
Okay. I spent time in San Jose and Sunnyvale and kind of that area, so I'm very familiar and and so actually this takes me back to I was in fifth grade in that area thinking about some of these
Really?
maps, of these things. Yeah.
Did you grow up there?
We moved there when I was in fifth grade.
Okay.
And from Southern California, from San Bernardino, and my dad basically got a job in Sunnyvale area doing early mapping like this.
Oh wow.
And but the cool thing is as well, he was actually trying to map out oil fields and things in North Dakota. But the whole idea of heat signatures from oil production is exactly the same idea. It's like, oh, it's hot there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Isabella, why? Why is it hot?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was there, they were still building some of the freeways because this is 1988, 1987 to 1991 is when I was there. So the earthquake also happened. So again, kind of one of those things of, the world you're living in sort of came about because of that event many years before you even came around, right? And to me, that's one of these things that sort of gets lost in what we see today. And the cool thing is, one of the things that we can actually use is our land cover as a stand-in for population, right? And so one of the first things that we can actually do is just look at and quantify out how many pixels are labeled as built up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you can actually do with the LCMS piece and also the land cover or the new land cover data set that just came out from USGS. So this is going to be a big thing everybody's going to be talking about. So we're going to walk you through, be one of the first people to walk you into this. Because essentially you can, just assign an average temperature to those different land cover types. Okay? And, and you just need a general number. I mean, basically the idea is built up is, whether it's concrete or urban, is going to just be warmer. So you can give it 100 if you wanted to, or whatever, or 150 if you really want to what's kind of the average midday sort of temperature, right? And so, you can just kind of come up and say, okay, I'm going to start with this as just a number for this land cover type. And then, the number of pixels that cover that area give you the area of that, and you can multiply it by that and divide it by the area and come up with kind of, okay, it's an average temperature of this, in this part of the city. And so you need to have that larger, okay, what is the larger study area that we're talking about? Okay, so that's where the square that I gave you is just kind of okay, that's a nice place to start. It's reasonable. You can walk around it. There's, all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can start with that as the piece. And so your question, Isabella, really becomes how much of this is sort of natural vegetation that can be assigned a value of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or something like that, something much lower because it's vegetation, and it has shadow, and then you have the urban piece. And so you can just kind of come up with a very simple temperature model of, based on the land cover type, approximately what would be the temperature if you went into that. Okay. And so,
sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's
so
perfect.
the AOI that I have right now, it has a combination of both the agricultural piece of Morgan Hill and then the urban piece. Would you recommend doing another AOI in the center of downtown, where the traffic is most condensed, so then I can compare the two?
Yeah, so this is a really good idea of a transect, basically going across. So what you can actually do is go both directions, Isabella, so that, essentially you kind of have described the middle place on your scale, right? And so now you need to go out and you need to choose a natural area or an area one of the parks. We've got a lot of county parks and state parks and some things like that. So if you kind of go out to that more natural, where the land cover is more or less impervious surface, as we call it.
Okay.
Because there is a fractional cover inside of this data layer that you can use, which is exactly what you're going to produce from your AOI. Basically, how much of this area is impervious surface that would elevate the temperature. And really it's the minimum temperature that we're sort of really worried about, like overnight, and kind of like hanging on to that. Um, and so you'll actually see in this data set that not only is there the label of saying, oh, this is urban or built up, but then there's also another layer that's fractional cover that will give you that all the way to where is the 100%. It's just like the parking lot, or like the buildings, or like, that kind of thing. And all of those will have a slightly different temperature, but that's kind of the spectrum that you can expect to use, or the gradient, if you will, within there. And so, the nice thing is the method that you're doing with what you have with just that one AOI is a good first step.
Okay.
And then the nice thing is, given time, you can then actually go and repeat it, more, find an area that is at the end of the or kind of the spectral end member, or kind of like that end member of the 100% built up that you want.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, if you go the other end, with that 3 kilometer area, you sort of get enough variation to sort of fill in those gaps in between as well. But, that to me is kind of like how I would choose the anchor point based off of what you said. Like, I like that idea of like, okay, I'm going to now anchor it like in an urban area, or what I have been told is an urban area.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And vice versa, and, do that. And that would give you 3, areas that would give you nearly 10,000 points to be able to map, to be able to look across. And then, it not only in this one moment of time, but then you actually have those 10,000 locations to go all the way back 40 years. So that's how you actually now have a huge volume of data that allows you to look at that urbanization over time. And just, it basically, Isabella, if you could just structure all that data, get it together, and make some graphs about this, that's the publishable piece right there. And, because there's a lot of animations we can make about this, and the fact that this data set just came out, nobody's looked at these locations and sort of their predictions in relation to even the LCMS predictions of those places. Like, right now, we actually have so many people telling you, how impervious is this spot?
Yeah.
That's kind of like that first one before you can really, like, it's like, well, Isabella, which one of these do you use to quantify where the urban and natural fabric is, or kind of where these edges are? And you don't want to have to make this. I'll just tell you that right now. Because you'll have somebody looking at your maps just like you going, wait a minute, this is wrong, or I can't use this. So this step of really like, which one of these layers do we use today, but then to go back in time to quantify that change that you're talking about, is really this really important step right now that will determine what do you do after this, or what does this mean afterwards. So I love this, Isabella, because really where you're at is learning how to do that painting and labeling of those dots. Okay, and there's a lot of different tools that will help you do that. But that's like literally where we are this week. And so here I can walk you through and kind of show it to you.
Yes, please. That was my next point.
No, and so if you ask to share the screen, go ahead and do that, and then you can show me what you have, and that will be a lot easier. Because one of the things I realized actually as I was doing this is, after you do this labeling, I want these points to get baked into the HTML so that we can actually like keep moving it with. So you don't have all of these different files and maps and different things like that. So I love this. Oh my gosh, Isabella, like, wow. Okay, so describe to me what I'm seeing here.
This is the sampler selector, and then this is all my globe points. I have to go back to some of these because my phone glitched and it moved the location even though I took them in the correct location, so I'll go back and do that. This is what I was talking about, like trying to go more in the agricultural areas, which is over here. And then you could see that I touched more of like the center of Morgan Hill over here. But what I was having trouble with was uploading my CVS or CSV onto the labeling
Yes.
HTML.
Okay. So this is very good, and right now, we're in beta mode, I'd say, with this, and so you're helping us, get ready for tomorrow, because I wanted to give everybody at least like 30 minutes tomorrow to go through and do this. And so, Isabella, hopefully, we'll get you through this one sort of, today, as, and sort of testing out, but hopefully, it will work. Or I can walk you through it right now, because it does seem to be producing at least that grid, that download grid CSV, does seem to be giving us the coordinates and then the label that we're selecting in the next step. Okay. So this was kind of the first one, and the cool thing is, I'll just say, go down and click on that NDVI. That's right above the export option. You were right there. Yeah. So right there at the top, there's that named imagery. So if you click that on, it will change. Give it a moment here. Isabella, this is what I'd like you to actually use to guide your next selection for your anchor points. This is photosynthesis. And so, one of the things in the remote sensing tutorial, was all about how do we measure greenness. Well, this right here in the United States is the way that we do it. And so you can actually see like the agricultural fields closer to the river itself. You can see the riparian area. You can see the open waters, like those red areas, just because of the color and the numbers back there. But this is where you could even see like the trees on the hills, right? Like some are green on one side, they're brown on the other. And that right there, you can see the less green ones are the shrubs. On the other side is like more the conifer trees or oak trees, that kind of thing. So here, what you could actually do, I like this. You have two options in a direction that would be useful. And so Isabella, you could make another anchor, another point like near one of the river water bodies. Okay. Right. Yeah. And that would because water is a really good anchor for everything else. Yeah. We expect it to be cooler. It sort of has a shape like that, defined edges. So you could go either direction. And I see, interesting questions with either way. Like, oh my gosh, I actually do see like algae or algal blooms in that one in the upper right.
Oh, up here.
Yep, that's what that red and blue is actually. Like, that's just wild. And so I would choose one of those as another anchor point. Okay. And if you go to the southwest there, where that red sort of wiggly worm is, and anchor yourself there, somewhere along there. If you do it along the edge, like where somebody would stand, like boat ramp or like, something like that, that's a good anchor point, because then somebody could go there in the future or, that kind of thing. It's also sort of a recognizable spot that is geo-referenced. So hopefully if your phone does glitch, like what you sort of experienced or showing there, Isabella, that is to be expected. Okay, this to me is actually part of the sort of double checking of digital data. That sort of thing happens all the time, and if you don't think about it or know about it, people just will grab it and go, oh, okay, well now we're standing in water. It's like, wait, no. so that's expected to me, and that's the reason why, like, if you choose your anchor point as a good obvious place, you can put it there. So if you do that there, one of the things you'll get, like, look at all of the, sort of dark green and sort of, that kind of thing. So that'll be a good anchor for the sort of that natural place.
Even if I don't get all the points, or like if I get only half of them, it'll be fine.
You don't need to go out and actually do any more ground photos.
Okay.
Okay, so this is I think a really important thing is we're transitioning from like, okay, you had a sprint, you had the ability to get ground photos, you did some, able to get some, great, and you did more than a lot of people and are able to. And Isabella, like, I love this because it's almost perfectly on the grid. And the thing is, like, I'll just say, when you now go look at this place on the map with the globe database, it'll have this nice grid spacing to
Oh,
it, and yeah, and people, I
the
swear, people will go, oh my gosh, wow, they followed a scientific sample. It's not just random anywhere. It's like it has this nice spacing to it.
hmm
So Isabella, like that, I just want to applaud you
Oh,
for
thank
your
you.
ability to do that. And so no, don't try to repeat that
Okay.
because again, that takes time. But what you can get done really fast is this imagery labeling.
Okay.
Okay. And, and that's the reason why we do it, because we can do it fast. But we do it wrong in some cases, or underinterpret, or we're tied to whatever is getting shown to us.
hmm
And so that sort of is why it's like a little bit of a hypothesis.
Okay.
Because do you really know if it's right if you don't have any ground information?
Yeah.
You could totally get lied to. And so this is where you have to go in, and you can never be 100% certain with one piece of, if somebody just shows me your photos. Okay, well, yeah, I see some things there, Isabella, but, and so you give me some coordinates. I'm like, okay, well, that could be there.
hmm
But like you said, maybe your phone glitched and those numbers aren't quite right.
Yeah.
So that's where I go to the map and go, okay, well, are there things that look like this? Oh, no, I see green or vegetation or that kind of thing here, and you're showing me that it's asphalt. Oh, okay, Isabella, nope, nope, nope. Okay, we've got to deal with this because, like, then our satellite temperature measurements don't line up, right?
Yeah.
And so suddenly you're calling, like, that agricultural field that you can see outside of the AOI or the river, like, much warmer than it really is. So the spatial alignment is pretty important as you go through it.
hmm
So if you're forced to only have to use one of these, one of the things that we'll record is how certain are you of this label. And that's exactly what all the map producers are doing as well. Is they're looking at this going, okay, well, I feel pretty certain because these numbers are here, or that's what they are, and based off of 50 years of work, we can be pretty sure that all those really green things are like dense
hmm
vegetation. But you notice that as it goes down, forest, grass, sparse, what happens between point three and point three right there,
Yeah.
like, and so that's where you get some differences as you apply it to your Morgan Hill landscape versus a Colorado landscape with
hmm
Rusty, or even further down, in somewhere Southern California, right, the Altadena area with some of our other people, right, like it's still California, but it's different,
Yeah.
in that way. So this is where numbers are useful, but you need to bring some label to them.
Okay.
Okay. And that is where you could put a label on there of, do people live in that pixel? And so you can actually start putting numbers instead of dense forest, grass, whatever. You could actually sort of be going, oh, well, people don't seem to be living or be populating that very green one. And and then we could go
Mm.
and look, and oh, of course it's giant trees, or it's
Yeah.
something like that, right? So Isabella, that's where you can actually start using your numbers that you want to do, or maybe the houses as a stand-in, or structures as a stand-in for population. And there's some, and as I just said that, thank you for letting me just go on and kind of like get there with you. Because one data layer that could be really cool to look at and investigate is their Meta put out a structure layer around the globe. It has 4 billion footprints inside of it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and this is what you'll see inside of OpenStreetMaps as well. If you change this from NDVI back to off or something like that, and go over to the little layer file that I have in the upper right, right next to the photo gallery, other side. Yeah, yeah, you're almost there. The little
Oh,
pizza,
I
like,
see.
yeah, that one right there. So if you do, yeah, OpenStreetMap right there. So if you zoom in on those right there, Isabella, and keep zooming in, all the way down to like one of your primary sample units, what you'll see is they actually have a footprint layer as well. And so all of those buildings inside of there, you can even see like the houses and all of those things. They actually have coordinates that we could pull out and ask the question, well, how many structure footprints are in each one of these 100-meter sample areas? That could actually be really cool and really groundbreaking, actually, because people put out that data set and they assume that it's correct because Meta did it,
Yeah.
and it's 4 billion. But again, one of the things is, okay, so it might be right at this particular moment in time. But here's where, yeah, so I love this, Isabella. Let's make this your project. Because this gets into the urban heat island piece of things.
Mhm.
Because it's one thing to say, like, it's built.
Yeah.
It's another thing to say what sort of materials are actually in that built environment. Is it bright? Is it dark? Is it shiny? And this is where one of the things that is sort of missing from the globe thought process within class change. Okay, so you have a parking lot to start off with. Well, at some point, people want to build an apartment building there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now it's still built, but it's now a different sort of structure. It now has a green living roof on the top of it, Isabella. How does that now like change things?
Mm.
Or, people had a building and they had tile roofs on there for many, many years, and then they decided to put the green roof on there, or solar panels, or you kind of name it, right? And so all of that gets into kind of that thermal number that would be there. Okay, so what we can actually do is a relationship between the structure count and the amount of structure area, the footprint of those structures within each one of your 100-meter primary sample units. So we needed that geometry, kind of that area to define. Now we can actually start looking at that, quantifying out how much that takes up, and then that will automatically give you a way of making a symbol that's really big for the ones that take up all like 100% of the area, versus ones that like you saw in the corner there that are just all trees,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I love this. I love this. I love this because it does go into the labeling piece that you can do, and we'll do this sort of 2 different ways. But Isabella, this is I really like this because I think the green infrastructure kind of piece and the description of the green infrastructure piece is the hook that I want to demonstrate with you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, and part of that is because I just remember looking out going, we have all these green roofs that are now not anywhere in our labels.
Yeah.
And so if you think of like LEED certification, they actually talk about how much green area you have to have. And so it's a way of looking at, well, they put this in 50 years or 20 years ago, told us it would be this great thing, and it would save us temperature and it would help with our urban heat island. Well, they're still alive. They still exist.
Yeah.
And Isabella, this is actually where I see misclassification in the land cover maps is they'll actually call these places forest because it has green and a shadow.
Mm.
And they will just completely misunderstand that it's actually like maybe trees on top of the building.
Yeah.
And so it's really confusing. And so and this is just kind of that's the context. So I'm about to jump out of my seat because like I said, I've been thinking about this one for a while, and I really like it because that is now how are you going to identify the structures or quantify that out, right? And so that leads into our labeling technique that we want to do here. And so you've got a sample to start off with.
Yes.
This is good. And so I love this. And you can download all of these things. And that way we have the starting locations that we can, that will become the sort of permanent thing that we'll move forward with. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Way excited, Isabella. Like, this is just like...
I am too. Sounds great.
Okay, good. Okay, so now what I would like you to do is actually move to that coding directory in the Google Drive right there. Yep. And now I'd like you to download that Step 2 labeler, version 325.
This one?
That's the one. Okay, so this is great, Isabella. So you've now downloaded this, and now we're ready to take action on that sample. Okay, and there's a lot of things we can do with those coordinates, but on a very simple term, we're going to make a table that has latitude, or it has like an ID, right? So we can keep track of where we are or how many numbers we are. But then it has the latitude, longitude, and then we'll be adding in the fourth column, which is just the label. Like, what do we want to put that label on? Mm-hmm. And this is where you could very simply say structure, no structure. Structure, no structure.
Yeah.
And so that's one label that you could put on. We're going to have you go through and first just kind of match our land cover maps that have been produced by, the authorities. Okay. And but either way, like, that's basically this task right here is like, okay, what label do you want to put on these points? Okay. And so here, what I want to set up initially, you've got your orc ID in there, you've got the remember me, this is great. And maybe actually try putting in some initials, just, IL. And maybe that it was a hang up or things, right?
Okay.
And so now if you check the choose file.
I haven't downloaded I don't know which one to download.
Thank you. Okay, Isabella, this is great. So download, click on all 5 of those buttons and just download every single one of those things. In theory, the download all zip file has all of it wrapped together, but this is the point where hopefully tomorrow actually this might be a save, and it will actually save these coordinates and then open up this next file for you, so that you don't have to actually import or choose this file. Mm-hmm. So, but now that you're here, this is great. You got to remember me. And so choose the CSV load sampler file right there and select the grid the grid CSV that's there.
The grid. Okay.
Yes. Okay. That's what I wanted to have happen there, Isabella. So formatting of data is usually the biggest problem starting a tool. Okay. So, and it's amazing even when people say, oh, use a CSV, and it's like, oh, it's still not formatted in the way that they expected.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
I was doing this yesterday, and I was toning in on this one point, and I was getting really frustrated because I didn't know how to expand it or make it look like my other
exactly. And at this point you are actually zoomed in at this 100 meter by 100 meter 10 by 10 grid. Mm-hmm. And so it's really dense, and so that's one thing. And so this is great. Okay, this is exactly what I want you to see. Now what you need to do is select what is the map producer, or what's the map that we're going to match to. And so, Isabella, one of the things that you highlighted for me is, and I really like this, is more of an urban focus. So our impervious surface, or more of that structure question I like, that is really just a yes/no question, like a binary kind of question. Rather than, hey, let's jump in and lock in your 10 class working legend so that you have 10 labels to choose from. Because, 2's too easy. Okay, yeah, you got me going there somewhere, Isabella. So I like that. Okay, so here, if you go over and click on that green icon that says lock, yeah, okay, there, perfect. And now it says choose and lock before labeling. Hopefully it does work, but go over and click the start labeling session. Now, okay, good, it does work. Okay, so Again, one of the things that you can do is what we're doing, and I love this because you have this set up, and this is a good way for you to be able to do it. Is you could actually just go through and label these, like when they fall directly on a structure, like where you're just about right. You could actually label that as built. And if you click on the built category, yeah, or the shrub or the grass. See, this is and so this is where yeah, if you click on that or click on the SSU next. So I kind of have it. What I have is mainly using these the label tools at the top. Yep. And if you do paint,
Next.
yep. And then right there, yep, right there. Perfect. And now like switch to maybe the grass, or you can use the other unresolved for that other class. Regardless, Isabella, like you could basically go through, and this is exactly what I want you to be doing.
Okay.
And for your question, the structure non-structure question, you could do exactly this and use the OpenStreetMap as the reference map.
OpenStreetMap.
So here, I'll finish out. Well, actually, you have it already loaded underneath you. So at the very bottom of this map pane, you'll actually see we have a couple little things to help you.
Yeah.
One is the reference map. And so in your case, I hadn't really planned on this, but the reference map is using the structure layers in OpenStreetMaps. And so you're just going through that map and basically creating a data set that you could then compare to your ground photos. Or after you finish doing that, what you can do is change the reference map. If you click on that OpenStreetMap label right there, there's a drop down and you can actually choose that USDA NAIP. So that was the one that we were looking at the other one, and click apply right there. Voila. Here's the spectral information that helps you to identify, is that a tree or is that grass, or what is that non-structure element, basically.
Would tree be forest?
Yes.
Okay.
So again, this is kind of one of these things where it makes it easier if you just grab the definitions from, the experts or the map that you want to compare it to and say, okay, here's the definition of this. And so technically built has a whole definition of what is built. And really you want to be paying attention to that, because otherwise you might say, oh, this is a tree, but they really meant forest, right? And so they really meant more than one tree, Isabella. They meant more, and so you can, in this case, if you use our AAPK, this legend in the background, it is actually keeping track of the legend you're using, which means the definitions are sort of traceable. It keeps track of the reference map that you're actually using to label. So it tells us whether you're using the OpenStreetMap or whether you're using this imagery, right? And then importantly, you can use that uncertain certain for little toggle there on either spot with the label tools to basically note those places where maybe it's half building and maybe not building, or those places where you're just not really 100% sure of that structure question, right? Okay. And one thing I'll point out is if over in the left-hand column, you can now actually collapse your task one panel, so that, and then down below.
Hang on, sorry, I'm gonna close my window.
No, totally.
Okay. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
Bob. And so you notice you can also get rid of or twisty the loaded rows and all of that to give yourself a little bit more room. There's a little twisty at the top, right there. And then here is what I wanted to point you to. There's the definitions related to the labels that we're working with.
Okay.
So here's where, I've already made a place where we could, and I'll think about how to do this, but you could import a custom legend for your question. Structure, not structure. So instead of having all these things and sort of choosing from that, we could make a custom one that is just your structure, non-structure, or I actually think, it's not just structure, not structure, but it's is that concrete or asphalt? sort of that color of the material it gets into the urban heat island piece.
Yeah, I think it'd also be a good idea to include the green element, so then you can, but like I think the built and then what you were saying about the different types of structures, and then the green element would be a good one.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Isabella, what you can do today is write down what are the labels that you want to use that you can essentially assign an average temperature to, surface temperature to. And, when you talk about the average, you kind of have to put the timeline in there as well, right? Are we talking about summer, June 21st, or are we talking December 21st, right? So you can kind of choose a date and, do a little research, get some reasonable numbers that you can reference so that you can basically point at them and say, well, this came from them, and I'm not making this up, right?
Yeah.
But if you come up with, I think, one of the things that you can, some keywords, local climate zone. This is the way that people are trying to get at some of this nuance that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's for exactly the same reasons. Is urban heat island is very different and changing, and so it's very complex. So that it really gets into microclimates and sort of needs the information that you're producing through something like this. Mm-hmm. So the cool thing is, so if you just keep doing, this is our task. So you can keep doing this, but I actually think, Isabella, if you focus on what are the labels that you want to use, then tomorrow when you show up, we can have you test out actually loading that into there so that while I'm there, you can actually be labeling that while other people are doing this label palette.
Mm-hmm. Is this the only point? Like, how do I see my other points?
So you need to click on that PSU advance right next to the SSU. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
And so it should have 36 of these locations in there. And so, I'm working on a little bit better navigation system. So it's like, where am I in this progress?
Yeah.
So, and you can actually see at the bottom there is a little progress bar, like the current secondary sample unit that you're in. Some of those kinds of things, and so again, any improvements that you think or clarifications that we want to make, write those down, Isabella, because that's kind of you're one of the beta testers for this. And then when you get close to being done or need to just okay, I'm done with this, I tested it out, export the labels with the CSV file and the JSON session file.
Okay.
And the CSV you should be able to open up, and see our other tables that we've created so far. But that should hopefully have those 4 columns or a bunch of columns that give you latitude, longitude.
Yeah.
And a label, whatever it is that you put on there. And so that that's a really good place to be right now, because as you can see, this is where you start really checking and providing evidence against experts. And so how it gets used is where your question really starts coming in.
Okay.
Because everybody's going to be labeling these same categories for their locations.
Yeah.
So you can, again, kind of think about okay, yes, you do your spot, but do you want to choose another place on the other side of the world, or do you want to, again, kind of stay local and kind of expand it out locally? And either way, you're going to be working with similar data, Isabella.
Okay. And then would you recommend for this week also labeling here, like you mentioned earlier, and then over here? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I love it. I just find I had to laugh because Cheesebro Resborf, it brings back a lot of memories. Like I said, my sister was in high school during that time, and so she was going to all those the parties there, and senior
in Chessborough, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so like it just I mean that whole area because you can't get busted if you're
Yeah.
out of the city limits, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, Isabella, like I like this because where I want to end with you because you're like, okay, how does this when you first came in, you're like, how does this connect to LCMS?
Mm-hmm.
Now go to the LCMS tab. And that would even work perfectly. And so right here, you are getting a lot of numbers that we can place with your coordinates.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we'll be working on over this next week is, okay, once you get your labels for these locations, how do you use this to then add all of these attributes to it? In this case, what you can actually do is go over to the right-hand area, and there's this squiggly line. Yep, right there. And here, if you actually, click on your Morgan Hill one, this is great right here. You're getting those results. And this is where, Isabella, like really if you read the I related to these, every single one of them will be related to a certain scale or area. And all you have to do is write down what those things are.
Write down in the labeling.
You could even take this and start putting it into a spreadsheet that says,
okay,
here's what it is. And I love this right here because you could actually download that table. And so the middle, there's 5 little icons at the top of that graph. The eye, the little, right there. If you export that data, you can export it as Excel. There's where you actually get the numbers for this area, for this geometry. So go through and just do all of this for each one of the things that you find interesting over here.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be what you end up describing in your results. Okay, these are just the results. This is just it. Just report it. This is what it is. Okay. In this case, everything looks stable. Great. And that's where like you might find some climate, some other things like that kind of talk about that area, right? So this is a great place to get information that help you to then go into your discussion about, well, so what? What does this say, right? And again, this is really kind of snapshot in time kind of pieces, or maybe a little bit moments in time, like you see there. But again, even that Morgan Hill one, that one, you see it's like 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020. So that time step might align with census data that sort of give us, again, not the specifics of where people are at. The structures really give us where we expect people to be. Right. Okay. And so there's all kinds of things there. And so if you go to your second LCMS tab, yep, that one right there. The data viewer. Go to the data viewer. That was the second one that you had open. Yep, that one right there. So there, yep, click that one right there. And so now, now what you're starting to get at, if you type in, are we in Morgan Hill right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. What I'd like you to click on is that land cover piece click on the land cover one. Let's see if we can get a data layer up.
This one right here?
Yeah, or even any one of these, like zoom out. Just, let's see. Yeah, see if we can get. Okay, good. I see the cogs moving. Okay, interesting. So, maybe Google server's down right now, Isabella. Okay. But what you can do is here you're looking at the same area.
Yeah.
And what I'd like you to look at is actually that change. How many, and record down how many of these types of change agents have occurred kind of in that area. And you can just do this by eye right now, because we'll get into how to do it programmatically, tomorrow or, a little bit later this week. But right now, just kind of go through and see, what is causing the change, where's the change, and that piece of things. And I will work on, under the tools, there's a place where we can actually upload our geometry.
Okay.
So, so again, this gets you into that change piece if it would load properly.
What
And
when it does load, what does it show?
So yeah, so if you go back to that, just the click refresh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and okay, that's what I want right there. Is the change layer on the top. So the land cover one is very similar to the other land cover that you've looked at on an Earth map, but it's the change layer that is sort of the new one. And so if you use that slider toggle next there, you can actually change the transparency, slide that down, and there you see the land cover that was there in 2024, or the latest year that they have on there. So again, this is you can use these to assign a temperature value to these different land cover types and come up with that. Well, how hot is that area, right? And then, but importantly, if you turn off the land cover and turn back on that change, all of those you can actually see, like under South Coyote, that linear sort of strip. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just it's in the middle of the screen, Isabella. Yeah, just zoom in where your hand is.
Okay. Oops.
You can actually see, Target. It got built at a particular moment in time. We got it. White Moon Drive is an example of what you would see with urbanization. And so the key is that had a temperature or a land cover before that moment that was cooler. They put in this other loss category, I guess, or maybe mechanical land transformation. But that's the agent of change that really caused the temperature you're measuring today and the land cover that you're seeing today. And so, Isabella, this right here gives us the places that are where we can focus. Well, how much of a big temperature change do we want to assign to that? Okay. But the cool thing is, I look at this, I'm like, okay, I can see Madrone Parkway when that got put in. I can see, the Carpenters Training Center building that got put in there. I can see, and so that's where the Google Map piece actually helps us to see sort of like the land use change. Oh, I love this. We can even see Sobrato High School came in and, changed. Yeah. Right? So to me, I see an individual pixel and it's like, okay, that's interesting. But then when I can start to see some of these shapes in relation to that map. And if we overlay on top of this, your labels of where structures are related, because that's not on this map, that actually would tell us oh, that is a change not because of the road, but actually, or maybe a road and a structure, right? So this labeling piece that we're going to get into tomorrow is your next step, Isabella, and I love it. So thanks for giving me the time to really dive into that and give you the specifics. I recorded this as well, so I like it because that's actually been really helpful, the transcript that comes with this. So
yeah, that would be totally helpful.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Thank you so much. That's so helpful, and it gives me so much insight what the next steps are, and I really appreciate all your help.
Yeah, my pleasure, Isabella. I definitely appreciate diving into Morgan Hill and, like I said, kind of going down memory lane myself. And so so when we start talking about the places of change over time and that kind of thing, we can sort of demonstrate that, I remember when, kind of thing. So like I said, I appreciate that, Isabella, because again, I was there because my dad was actually working on exactly what we were doing right now.
That's so
and
cool.
And I had no idea. I was just going to school, doing exactly what you're doing, and just what are you talking about? I can do what? And so I remember this very similar feeling of just okay, I'm along for the ride, and I believe that all of this is going to come together. So. Thanks for that trust, Isabella.
Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
I definitely will. This is the beginning of many conversations, so I appreciate it.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Bye, Isabella.